Meredith.
Yay!
Do you,
Hi, good to see
do
you.
you know that ever since our interview, this is where I hang out now, like is in this room? Because remember, you moved me into a different room, and I was like, okay, I think I could live in this room now.
We had such a good time. That was one of my favorite interviews because I actually got to do some yoga during the interview. It like made the rest of my day so much better.
Oh,
I remember we were
I mean,
ending in Shavasana and I had a client walking into my office. I'm like, I gotta go.
you're like, allow, allow.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah, no,
good.
that was really special. I really enjoyed our time, and whew, you've done so much. I mean, you have so many different skills that seem disconnected, but we know are very deeply interconnected. The spirit, the mind, the physical body, and all those things. So I know we're here to talk about your journal. Can you hold it up real quick? Because I don't have a hard copy, but I would love for everybody to see it. The Self Compassion Daily Journal. And this is
Yay.
third, your third
This is
book or fourth?
my
Okay.
second book. Yeah, but
And
I'm working on another one right now. But this is actually it's sort of a pairing, a follow up of the first book. The first book was about ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, that
yeah,
you were just mentioning, and it's sort of walking you through the processes of becoming more psychologically flexible. And then I see another wing of that is when we're trying to make changes in our life that are aligned with our values and we get clear on what we care about, we want to move in that direction. We also need a really healthy dose of self-compassion
mm,
because all the obstacles that show up along the way, all the self-doubt, the self-criticism, the old stories can show up. And so I wrote this one to be an accompany to the other one in some ways, or maybe stand alone for folks that struggle with self-doubt, with a critical mind, or just need some inner support as they're doing things that are difficult, like parenting
yeah.
is one of them. Yeah.
Just to name a few.
Yeah.
I think it's really fascinating. I don't know if you've noticed this, but self-compassion as a subject is discussed a lot within the Buddhist tradition, right? Like Kristen Neff's teaching and what you're offering. I don't hear it. Maybe there's a different word for it in the yoga tradition, but
Mm.
that I feel like I hear it a lot within mindfulness circles and Buddhist circles. And I don't know, I'm more just making an observation than actually
Yeah.
asking a question here. But let's talk about how self-compassion is key for your psychological health, but also for your spiritual and your well, I think they're all connected. So I'm like, what do I even
Yeah.
call it? Your mindfulness practice as well. How are all those things tied into our self-compassion practice?
Yeah. Well, to tie it into yoga, I mean, where I see it is maybe just through different language. I see it as ahimsa,
Mm,
right? So not harming, and that when we're practicing the yamas and niyamas of yoga, when we're practicing not harming, are we including ourselves in that circle of not
yes.
harming? And we often think about, I'm not harming other people, or I'm trying to, not harm our planet or not harm animals, but we can include ourselves in that, the practice of non-harm. And what the research shows is that first, and I address this in the very first chapter, a lot of us have fears about self-compassion. And the common ones are things, and I think especially as parents, is that if I'm self-compassionate, then I would just never get off my couch. I'm so
Yeah.
exhausted, right? Or if I'm self-compassionate, I'll be selfish and I'll always be putting myself, first in front of my kids. Or if I'm self-compassionate, I'll lose my
Mm,
edge a little bit. Like I won't, all the things that I'm productive around or that have gotten me to where I've gotten to in my life have been because I pushed myself.
yeah.
So those are really common for us to have fears of self-compassion. And at the same time, what the research shows is that folks that are more self-compassionate actually perform better, tend to be able to be more compassionate towards others. We've all had that experience if, we're exhausted. And for me, like my exhaustion usually is at the same time that my kids are walking in the door. Like that's my
Yeah.
peak.
Yeah.
My kids don't get me when I'm at my best. They
Yeah.
get me at the end of the day when I'm like, I've given so much in different ways. And so if in that moment I could take care of myself, it's different than self-care. If in that moment I could actually just tend to, wow, this is really hard. I'm really exhausted right now. Maybe I don't need to be so hard on myself about, how I'm parenting, but actually be kinder to myself, then I'm more likely to then be able to show up for my kids and be present and kind and caring, compassionate towards them. So you tend to perform better. You tend to be more compassionate to the people around you. And then the third one is I actually do think you might lose your edge a little bit. but you lose your edge around the stuff that isn't as important to
Yeah.
you, because you get clear on this, this messiness of my kitchen actually doesn't matter as much to me right now as like paying attention to, um, you know, something that is more important to me, like taking a moment to take a break, or listen to what my needs are, or express myself to my partner, whatever those things are.
I mean, I think I'm laughing a little bit because, the edge conversation of it is like so many of my like what I thought were positive traits. And they're all neutral. There's benefit and challenges to all of them, but so much of like what propelled me forward in my career were really trauma responses, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
this, the attention to detail, the like even the field that I fell into, because I've got, my love for psychology and then yoga, and it's like all these things that are about intuiting with people, which I always thought was like I was just like an empath, and then I was like, oh no, you're just the child of an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And like, no, it's not like a magic skill, but I mean, but it is, right? It translates interestingly into a magic skill. So it's cool that like as we, and I've got two threads I want to pull, because one is like it may be teaching self-compassion at a younger age, but I'll stay with this real quick, which is that maybe we are meant to, in our young adulthood, push forward and have all these things come up so that we then have the opportunity to go back and kind of soften the edges of it a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like I still have that drive, but now I can see it, like you say, from a much more kind place, so that I can feel like, am I actually pushing out of excitement because this is like a project I fully believe in, or am I pushing because of desperation of wanting to be liked? Or, there's like, you can kind of start to parse through it, at least as an adult. It's helping me like so I can put the brakes on when I need to slow things down, but I can also amp things up when I know it's from a genuine place. But I love the idea of like teaching self-compassion too at a very at a younger age, right? And like seeing it come through our kids. And I mean, how old are your kids now?
My kids are 11 and 14, so
Right.
they
So
are
that was
much
my,
older than yours.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, mine are 2 and 4.
Yeah.
So like, what are you seeing as far as like the teenager? I mean, and 11 is preteen, right? That's a whole other, that's a whole other chapter. But when it comes to self-compassion and these kind of traits, I mean, you have such an aerial view, being a psychologist, being a meditation teacher, being just who you are in your practice. What are you seeing with them as far as self-compassion and how they're showing up in the world?
Yeah. Well, with my teenager, we were actually he just left for his first backpacking trip yesterday.
Oh, how's he
And
feeling?
he's with his school, and we were preparing his pack, and it was such a great conversation about carrying loads.
Yeah.
Right. So when you prepare a backpack, you want it to load on your hips and not as much on your shoulders, and how it's like you're carrying a heavy load, and how you carry it matters. And that's a metaphor, I think, for self-compassion, because we're all going to get hit by loads in life. We're going to get hit by stressors, by traumas, by just the nature of being human and the discomfort of being human. Self-compassion helps you carry the load in a different
Mm,
way, rather than like, I'm going to take it all in my shoulders and just like suffer through
literally.
this. I can actually help myself out. I can develop that encouraging and wise and soothing inner voice. And with him, having that conversation about carrying loads, then we can translate that into, what other loads are you carrying? Like, what other stressors, and peer stressors, or stressors related to school, and how are you carrying them when you're self-critical about, my kids lean more on the sort of perfectionism side of things. And
Even with all our training,
yeah,
even, there's like, they
yeah,
come
even
out
with
the
all that.
womb,
Yeah. But when
generations
you're
of anxiety and
Yeah, yeah. So some of these are traits and models.
yeah,
So, but when you're going through that, how are you talking to yourself? How are you, like, what extra loads are you adding in your own mind and your own expectations? And what are the what are the examples of people in your life that actually have been really encouraging to you and that help you feel soothed? And could you bring that voice in when it gets tough?
mm,
So we have those types of conversations. And I also, I think that our kids learn just by watching us. I remember watching my mom when I was a kid, watching my dad, and it's more the messaging that I saw than what they said.
yeah,
And that doesn't mean we're always going to be perfect models of it. We can also say, wow, that was something that I was doing in a way that wasn't so helpful for me. I said, I often tell my kids, I'm sitting in the consequences of my yes right now.
Mm, I
This is the
love that.
consequences of me saying yes too
Okay,
much. That's
you
why I'm
said
so
it so
hairy.
fast, but I want you to say it one more time for everybody because that's really good. You're sitting
I'm sitting
in
in the
the
consequences of my
consequences of your
yes.
yes.
Yeah.
That just
Because a lot of our
gave me
yeses were
chills.
6 months ago.
Yeah,
Yeah. We
yeah.
were, woo,
What?
I got fireworks.
What? What is
I don't know
that?
how or why, but my screen does. It's my poor clients. I'll be in therapy and all of a sudden balloons will start going off.
Oh my God, that's like, I mean, that one was kind of fitting from the universe. Are you on your computer or are you on your
No, I was on
phone?
my phone, but I haven't figured out how to turn off that setting. If someone knows, you
I know.
can
I
put me
know
on there.
there's one where like sometimes the thumbs come up and the hearts come up, but I've not seen that before. That was literally like on cue too. Oh
There
my
we go.
gosh. And also like what are you're sitting in the consequences of our yes is also goes back to like what I was talking about, the people pleasing and where are our motivations coming from, and is it coming from this trauma or like fawn response really of not wanting to upset somebody, or did I say yes because I was excited in the moment? And those can end up in two different ways too, right? Because as an introvert, everything sounds good 6 months out. And then, the date is coming up on the schedule and you're like, oh, okay, I really wish I hadn't agreed to this versus saying yes to someone because I don't want them to be mad at me. And then, what's coming up through that. So that's interesting. I love that idea of sitting in the consequences of the yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think our compassion system, the part of our nervous system that's activated when we're in a state of compassion for ourselves or for another person is just slower.
Mm-hmm.
And so because it's slower, when you can activate that, you can pause a little bit longer to actually sit in the wondering of, is this something that I want to say yes to? But our threat system is so fast, right? So our
Yeah.
threat system just wants to like get rid of that painful thing or please that person, or we are in a trauma response, right? um or we're in a freeze response where maybe we don't say yes
I
to
don't know
anything
what to
because we're
say. I
frozen.
bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have plenty of
So
that too, where I just like
yeah. So
literally can't answer. That's when you like ghost on the text, like you don't get back to people. Like,
mhm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it is when we practice there's many different practices of self-compassion, whether they're more body-based ones where we're, making contact with our skin. With my kids, I'll have them rub their hands together and do the eye cupping
Mm.
because that often is really helpful to kind of go inside, and just reduce the stimulation around you if you tend to be overstimulated. So there's, breathing exercises, all of those are activating that social engagement system is what Paul Gilbert calls it from the Compassionate
Mm-hmm.
Mind Foundation. But it's the 10 and friend, the digestive rest, all those, that basic system is one that is slower and one that we can make better decisions from
Mm.
because we're not in that quick response of just saying yes or just saying no, whichever one is our, we're in the sitting in the consequences of saying no to too many things and we're
Exactly.
lonely and left out and because we just always say no.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking like I always talk about like regulation and then down regulation and up regulation, but absolutely there's like the flight response too of saying no and avoiding everything,
Yeah.
and also like fuck you response of like the no. But it reminds me a little bit when we're talking, and I think this is all still part of your book, and I want to like you to open it and show us like what the chapters actually look like. But just something that it reminded me of, and I'd love for you to touch on, is the idea of the two arrows in Buddhism and how self-compassion kind of can be the block for that second arrow,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. Would you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, my understanding of the two arrows is that the first arrow is the actual hurt that we're
Yep.
experiencing. So, we're just going to get arrowed. It's part of being human. Little arrows, big arrows, they're coming our
Yeah.
way all the time. And the second arrow is our response to that first arrow when our response isn't acting from a place of ahimsa. I mean, when it's acting from a place of self-blame or acting from place of blaming others or not being able to forgive ourselves, all these things, the shame, the resentment, the ways in which we wake up in the middle of the night and we rehash something that happened, and it makes it much heavier of a load.
Mm.
So with self-compassion, there's different definitions. You mentioned Kristen Neff. There's the sort of original, the original sort of Buddhist definition of compassion has these two components of it, one of which is just acknowledging and being aware that suffering is here. Like that the first arrow happened, I've been hit, you
Yep.
know, and then be able to turn towards it and make space for it and be with it. Then the second component is doing something to alleviate that suffering. So compassion has a very active quality to it, and it's actually why there's a benefit to be helpful to people. Like when we are helpful to others or when we're helpful to ourselves, we feel like we actually are doing something to alleviate the suffering, and it makes us not stay stuck in it quite so long, right? So these two components of acknowledging that suffering's there and then doing something to alleviate it is really different than I'm trying to pretend like suffering isn't there and then I'm blaming myself for how I'm feeling or how I just acted. Because we're all going to make mistakes. I mean, sometimes the arrows that we experience in life are actually arrows that we've messed up,
I was thinking
you
that
know?
when you were saying the big arrows and the little arrows, and was like, I was like thinking of, when you could like the little arrows that like point down that you could put on like when you do a story or something. That's what I'm
Yeah.
imagining. I was like, big arrows, little arrows, lots of ones that are pointing from here to here, right back into me.
Yeah. Yeah. So the in the way that I've laid out the journal, I drew a lot from ACT, this acceptance and commitment therapy or training, which has a component to it which has to do with values.
Mm.
And for those of us that have a hard time with compassion or with self-compassion, values can be helpful because when you get a sense of what is most important to you and how you want to be in the world, and you see its connection to also, potentially kindness or love, that may be compassion, may be one of the core values that all humans actually share.
Mm.
We can access it. So there's a component of values to it. And there's a component of acceptance as well, of if that first arrow if we've been hit by an arrow, that in order to turn towards it, we actually have to accept that it's happened and accept with our bodies, accept with our minds, accept with our behavior. So in the book, I have these chapters where you move through acceptance of difficult emotions. You move through identifying what your values are. What are your values in relationships? How do you want to value yourself in relationships? What are your values at work? How do you want to value yourself at work? What would that look like for you? And then I also have a section on compassion for our bodies, because there's just so much that that talk about arrows. I mean, our bodies have been hit. I have a good friend who she's writing a letter to every one of her body parts. And she was like, she talked about, first she wrote to her vagina first. She
Yeah.
was like, that's the part that's been hurt the most. I'm
I
here
assume she's a
to
mother.
help in lots of ways if you've had children or if you've had trauma, right? And then, and she said, when I got to my eyes, it was so painful to write to my eyes because of all the ways in which, I mean, she's aging, and all the ways in which she has criticized these eyes, and her eyes that have been smiling, and the criticism that she has about her eyes. So we can have compassion for our bodies, but also learn how to listen to the innate wisdom of our bodies. And sometimes the hurt that is there is also an arrow of like, tend to me, tend to me a little bit.
That's so beautiful. I'm leading a mom's group right now up here in Marin, and we just did bodies was our topic of
Oh,
last week, and we part of like the invitation was to write a thank you note to the whole body, but I never thought about doing it piece by piece by piece. That's powerful.
yeah. When I do it with clients, I'll do it as a visualization, and I have a dialogue. We'll first let
Mm.
that body part speak to you, because sometimes body parts, you could do the whole body, and then when you get granular with the body parts, say someone had an addiction and they want their liver to talk to them, or they want their esophagus to talk to them, right? And then you can actually engage in a repair kind of conversation. You can engage in really listening to the suffering, which is that first part of compassion, like listening to the suffering that's there. And then the repair is that doing something to alleviate it.
Mm.
Like, I'm so sorry, and here's what I can commit to you right now in this moment, because really I really believe that we heal the past in the present moment. It's the only place we can heal the past. And then we heal the future in the present moment. We don't say we're going to do that in the future. We do it right here and right now. So having that exchange with your body parts, like just choose one. You could do it in the mirror. You could do it in the car. You could do it when you go to bed at night. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. So when you are seeing clients, are you bringing in your mindfulness practices too? Like, are you weaving both of them in, or are you practicing these two things separately?
Yeah. Yeah, every client is different. So I really tailor my practice to the individual. For some people, they're not going to close their eyes and sit with me
Yeah.
for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or however long. Some people, when they walk in, that's what we'll do first. I do a lot of eyes open practices with even we can be, I mean, in some ways, that's a way to practice, right? If we
Yeah.
can be eyes open, slow down, present right here in our bodies now, feel our bodies contacting whatever we're sitting on or standing on or walking in, feel the air on our skin, that we can talk through a therapy session while we're practicing
Mm.
mindfulness. And really, I really pay attention to, in ACT, there's something called experiential avoidance, which is when we're avoiding a difficult feeling, thought, sensation, or memory. We all have these tendencies, these experiential avoidance strategies. And for some people, experiential avoidance is things like speeding up. They start talking really quickly as soon as they start talking about their mom.
Mm.
And so a mindfulness practice would be just, hey, let's slow that way down. And can you tell that to me again? But tell it to me from your
Mm.
belly, you know, and that slowing it way down in that way, we're doing two things. One, we're practicing mindfulness, but two, we're also making contact with the suffering in a different way than just experientially avoiding it, moving through it. Or someone else may talk to the corner the whole
Yeah.
time they're in therapy. They're like, so then the other
Yeah.
day I was like, whoa, hold on. Can you bring yourself back and can you tell that to me while looking at me?
Mm.
And that's another exposure exercise. It's a mindfulness exercise, but it's not formal, like
Right.
let's sit and meditate.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's, and again, it goes back to what we were saying in the beginning, which is that it's also interconnected anyway. And, especially different forms of therapy. And it sounds like this acceptance, commitment therapy is a little bit more in line with the mindfulness practices and that kind of a lens on things. I know we only have 5 more minutes, so hold up the book real quick because you've got a lot to show us. So the beginning, to be clear, is a couple of different chapters just to get us used to your languaging, some of your studies, and this form of do I keep saying it right? Acceptance, commitment therapy.
Yeah.
I don't understand why I can't speak today.
Call it
Okay,
ACT. It's okay.
act,
ACT.
act,
Yeah.
act. Which, by the way, later offline, you and I just want to talk about the eating disorder side of things too, because I mean, as you know, I'm very vocal about my long history with eating disorder, and I didn't realize that this was one of the like leading treatment options for people with eating disorders, and how pivotal you were at La Luna and all those things. So we'll talk about that separate offline. But yes, so the first couple of chapters introduce us to ACT. They introduce us to ourselves. They give us times to ground and to connect into our value system and what we stand for to help people get clear on that. And then how do we get into the dailies of it all? What does the daily look like?
Yeah.
Can you show us
So
a sample?
so it's really each chapter is 7 days.
Okay,
And so each
got it.
chapter represents a week, but I'm the type of person that I would open this to the middle and I'd like do a page and then I'd go to the end and do another
That's
page. I
so
mean, you
funny.
don't really have to do it
That
linearly,
gives me
nor would I
anxiety.
want to.
Like I would not
Yeah.
do that. I would follow every single page from the Roman numerals all the way to the
Yeah.
end. I love that you would do that. That's so cool.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll give that as assignment. If you are the type of person who would do this
Yeah,
every
yeah.
single day, please don't. Um, so each chapter has 7 days to it, and the day will just have a little teaching
Mm.
and a little practice on a concept. And then it'll have space for you to write, and I'll have prompts and questions so that you're learning it, you're writing about it, and you're practicing it. And it'll be something really small. So, for example, I'm just going to open
Yeah.
to a page, just this is a random page, and this one's about watering compassionate thoughts. So you learned this week to step back and diffuse from your thoughts, take them less seriously, pay more attention to helpful, encouraging thoughts. And then it asks you about like what do you want to grow in your life? What seeds need watering, and what compassionate thoughts would water those seeds?
Mm.
Which thoughts do you want to stop watering, and how could you do that? Right? So a very simple practice, but then it's places. I mean, I didn't read the whole thing, but then it's places to write about it and make it personal to you. There's so much out there, so many ideas out there, and really it's about the personalization of the practice for yourself. And so having this kind of journaling experience is a way for you to have it apply to your life and really get flexible in the application of it. So that's the book, and it has 8 chapters. So it could be feasibly 8 weeks, or it could be 8 months, or 8 years, however long you want to take. Do a chapter a
Yes,
year.
not
Yeah.
8 hours. Okay,
Not 8 hours.
this is
Although
not
it
meant to be
could.
done in a day. I'm sure we probably could get it all done.
Yeah.
I find myself doing that sometimes with like my personal development work. I'm like speeding through it. Like I'm like, wait, where did
Oh my gosh, I made a commitment this year. Is I am in the commitment to not learn anything more.
Oh my God. I keep signing
Practice what I've
up for
learned.
stuff. That's my new thing is I'm signing up for every free offering. And I know where it's going. I know there will be a course promised to me at the end.
Yeah.
I know I will get the bonus. And I
Yeah.
know that I will already be hooked. But I just have been signing up for everything. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's never ending. But yeah, I'm like, okay, I gotta slow down, integrate it, take it all in. That's what I love about this, the idea of the journal too, is that it can be self-paced, that it's not actually, I thought it was 365. So I love the idea of hearing that it's these 8 different chapters and different ways of approaching it. Hold it up one more time. You should have it behind you, by the way, just for your interviews. I know you've got your plant there, but it should just be like living here next to you.
Yes.
Bring it close to the screen for us. And I know it's on Amazon. It's on anywhere books are sold. I assume, what's the one that they can look up? Is it Indigo, where we can find it if people want to get the at a local bookstore?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that website?
I think that's it. And then sometimes I use Bookshop, which I think uses local bookstores.
Okay.
It gives money back to local bookstores. But or let your local bookstore know that you want it there. That's
By
the other
way,
thing that I like to do.
This is really important. This is a very, very, very important point. Okay. If you go into a bookstore and they do not have the book that you want, don't just walk away and be like, oh, that sucks, and then go get it somewhere else. Tell the front desk and they will order for you.
Yeah.
Like that's how I literally have like gone in and ordered my book all around the United States. Yeah. I was like, I can't find it. I'm like, all right, you need to order 3 copies of this. And this is how you get it in. And then people are interested and they buy it and you're doing a service for someone else.
Absolutely.
So yes, if you go to your local bookstore and it is not there, ask for it. And make sure to follow Dr. Diana Hill. Wise Effort is that still going on? How did I not know
my
about
podcast name has changed because I'm writing a book now on Wise Effort.
I was so confused.
I changed. It was Your Life in Process, but now I just did a rebrand and I'm calling it Wise Effort because I'm doing a book with Sounds True called Wise Effort. So it's thanks.
My old
editor really exciting.
Is there. My editor that hired me for Shambhala, Sarah Stanton, is now at Sounds True.
She's my editor.
Yay. Tell her
I love her.
Says hi. I love her so much.
She's edited so many good books.
She's amazing.
I mean, she edited Pema Chodron's book.
That's what I was explaining to my dad because he was like, "What's Shambhala?" You know, like he's like in rock and roll, like he has no source. And I'm like, Pema Chodron, man. I'm like the Dalai Lama, like he has like no idea. But it's like I know. Can you imagine? Can you imagine those Zoom calls?
Yeah.
Like where?
Then you know that she's going to do a good job.
She's incredible. Oh, congratulations. That's very exciting. And they just did my friend Katie Horwich's book. So you guys are catalog sisters. I'll connect you. It's very different, but they're just wonderful. I love Sounds True. Great publishing house. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you. Sorry about Friday. It was like, the kids, I've got my son home for 2 days now, for no reason. Oh, there's a reason. It's parent teacher conferences in preschool.
Okay. Oh, because preschool. Right, because you get so much time in preschool. Like, it's like...
we have 2 days of him home, so they can tell us, like, he's like, is he picking his nose? Is he... No, right. Don't worry. Well, maybe, I don't know. I'll find out at 11:20 today. But anyway, thank you so much, Diana. I love talking to you. I'm so glad we're connected now, and I'm so excited for this new project and all these new phases and avenues that you're entering onto.
Yeah, you as well. We're sisters on a similar journey, so it's been really wonderful to connect with you, and thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks.
Yeah, go listen to the podcast with Sarah,
the
Yoga of Parenting. So for those of you that are following the Wise Effort podcast, it's still, you can just look it up on Your Life in Process or wherever it'll show up.
I'm going to ask, if they wanted, because we did a great one, and then there's also video, isn't there? Can they see the YouTube?
Yes, it's on YouTube, and you can see she guides me through yoga poses.
Diana's
I'm interviewing her. It was
this
pretty
is
cool.
Now my office, that I am now in a corner in my, actually part of it is we kicked Jacob out of this room. So I actually we didn't kick him out. He's actually staying with his brother now, but we got our room back. So I've got this little corner that I put myself in. So I'm not in the corner in the living room. And I love it in here. This is like, you opened up my whole world.
Yay. And
Yeah.
the beautiful door outside. It's so pretty. Okay,
All right, honey.
good. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much.
much.
Have a good day. Bye.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.